Hello, everyone. I want to welcome everyone to today's Fexa and Friends Network Show. I want to thank you for joining us and sharing a little bit of your day with us. I'm going to give everyone just a couple more seconds to log on to the platform. We have quite a few folks that have registered with us today, and it usually takes everyone an additional 15 or 20 seconds or so to come on in and on board with the platform. And so we're going to give folks just a couple more seconds to do that. Oh, I turned off my slide. Sorry about that. We're gonna get it going again. Technical difficulties. Here we go. Okay, well, again, thank you.
Dianna froze up on me. Chris, are you still there?
I'm still here. Yep.
So I'm unable to share my screen, but why don't we do our intros while Diana's unfreezing?
We can do that. So, well, good afternoon, everybody. And Dianna, I'm sorry you're frozen here, but we really appreciate you inviting Matt and I to be on the Fexa and Friends Network. We're excited to be here and really share with you about asset management and why we're excited about that. Uh-oh, we lost her completely. She's recording.
Well, the good news is you're the host now. Let's see. I think we should keep going and assume that she's going to dial back in.
We can do that. So again, excited to be here and really share with everyone about asset management and really things to consider. So my name is Chris Varney with Bureau Veritas. I've been with BV for about 18 years, and I run our project and program management group. My partner in crime today, Matt Munner, is our subject matter expert on asset management. Matt has been with BV for what, 20 plus years, Matt?
Yeah, 20 plus years. Yep, I'm a mechanical engineer and talking about asset management, asset level inventory. We're helping a lot of clients work in that space.
Cool. You want to go to the agenda, Matt? All right. So why are we here? It's really about best practices, lessons learned, things to consider for successful asset management. It's really about having better data to be more predictive and less reactive to what you're doing, and showing you how folks are leveraging technology to do that. So the agenda for today, we'll share a little bit about BV and what we do and why we think we can, or why we're helping people in this space. And really some key considerations. That's really the meat of what we're doing. And we'll follow it up with some question and answers at the end. So it should only take a couple hours, I think. So just kidding. We got about 30 minutes with you guys. So who are we? So Bureau Veritas, global company. We're about a 190-year-old company based around the world. We've got folks in about 140 countries. We've got 400,000 clients. So definitely understand different industries, different things around the world. We actually make our living in the testing, inspection, and certification industry. Little fun fact about BV. BV is almost a 200-year-old company. And we actually got mentioned in Jules Verne's book, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. And apparently we were the people that kept track of all the ships that were sinking. So kind of cool fact about us. Matt and I reside within our building and infrastructure group, specifically the building assessments and project management group. And we were really focused on assessing facilities. We will probably look at 50,000 buildings this year with a staff of almost 800 architects, engineers, again, just looking at facilities. We do this in a lot of different industries, government, institutional, retail, restaurant, you name it. Again, so understand buildings. We've got a lot of subject matter experts who know mechanical systems, no parking lots, no roofs, no commercial equipment. So we can definitely provide people with that expertise and scale to embark on their asset management program, and definitely understand the CMMS and work order system out there. So that's a little bit about us. Matt, we can go to the next one, which I think
Yeah,
will,
it looks like we have Dianna back. Dianna,
Yeah,
we
sorry everyone, my internet just absolutely dropped out. So I'm back. I apologize for that, but I'm glad it's still going for you guys. So continue.
wouldn't be a Zoom call without somebody freezing up or dropping
That's
off.
actually the first time it's happened to me on one of these shows. So I'm so glad you're here to continue.
you bet. Matt, you want to go to the next one?
Yep.
So, and Matt, I'll let you take it from here, but really this is the crux of it. Why we need to do an equipment inventory.
All right. So so I was going to do a quiz question on this, like what's the leading thing that we're hearing from our clients? So Chris, you've got a lot of retail clients. I have some more institutional type clients. What are you hearing as far as kind of the number one driver? Or are you hearing all these?
From clients, I mean, they really need to know what they've got out in the field, and be consistent about it. So it's interesting. What we're seeing with facility managers used to not be technology driven, but now it is. So really a big focus on understanding what they have, getting that into some type of platform so they can take all that data and make really better decisions about what they're doing with their facilities, with their capital planning.
Yeah, and to me, have you heard my iTunes speech at all? So 10 years ago, people were afraid of cloud-based software, but then everybody got comfortable with having all their music in the cloud, and now nobody's afraid of having their facility data in the cloud. So here's the step. Getting a work order system in place and being able to track work orders, being able to put work orders in and have the people in the buildings creating the work orders. That's step one. Once you start doing an equipment inventory, you really take a jump in using best practices in facilities. If you get a work ticket from the site, you can say, okay, it's a hot cold call. I know that area of the building is heated and cooled by a Trane 10-ton rooftop mounted unit, and a guy can be routed out with the right equipment, with the right replacement parts, right there. Also, once you know what's on the roof, you can start scheduling preventive maintenance and extend the life of that asset. So if you've got outsourced maintenance, you can be tracking and make sure, hey, we're paying for outsourced maintenance. Let's make sure they're doing everything that the owner's manual said should be done to make sure this piece of equipment makes it through its warranty period. Regarding warranties, if you're tracking small items, being able to say, hey, work ticket on an item that's still under warranty, being able to shunt that to a warranty provider instead of to a service provider often pays for the cost of the inventory itself. So why preventive maintenance it kind of is the next question that some owners will be like, well, why are we even doing preventive maintenance? Why don't we just run this equipment until it breaks, then we'll replace it. So we're hearing that less and less. I mean, first of all, you've got regulatory requirements. If you're running a food service business, you've got OSHA compliance, you've got fire protection, life safety happening there, that you need to be able to show you're inspecting those assets as required under the regs. And then I think we talked about preventive maintenance, being able to extend the life of those things. But then not to last but not least is hey, if you've got a organization that relies on the public to be in the building and that's generating revenue, say hotel, hospital, grocery, any kind of retail, downtime of equipment costs you money. So if if you've got an operation where people come to watch college football games on Saturdays and drink beer and eat chicken wings, you cannot have the beer system go down. You want to do your planned maintenance, extend the life cycle, do maintenance when it's due, and not wait for a breakdown. So that's a big deal. So Chris, what's the biggest thing you're hearing from your clients on why to go the next step and actually do barcoding versus just equipment inventory?
A couple things. I guess one is a lot of people are struggling with, somebody calling in to say, hey, this thing's down. Can't describe it well. They may not put people in the right spot. They say, hey, it's an air conditioner. They don't know it's an RTU. They don't know which RTU it is. So it's really allowing them to focus on the specific asset and get it routed to the correct person timely.
That's what I'm hearing as well, is that's the big jump. Okay, so you've got a work order system. Tickets are coming in from the site, and they're able to be routed either to in-house or outsourced maintenance. Once you do equipment inventory, okay, I can tell that's a HVAC ticket. I know what the equipment is. This really allows you to do equipment specific. I've got users in that example of the place that people like to go eat chicken wings and watch college football. You may not have a mechanic there. It's going to be the manager who's saying this piece of equipment is down. No problem. You have a phone, no special equipment needed. Read the barcode on the phone. It'll pull the piece of equipment up, create a work ticket, and the system will route that to the right person. So it really takes the guesswork out of it, really locks in quality. It's a small additional cost once you're already doing the equipment inventory. It also really drives, once you get to that level, you're really standardizing on what you're calling things. So you've got more than one location. Everything's being called the same thing. It also on the back end allows you, if you've got outsourced maintenance or in-house maintenance, to run some reports like, hey, I'd like to know if my guys are actually hitting those quarterly inspections and lubrication work tickets like they're supposed to. That's what we're paying them to make sure this equipment makes it to its life cycle. It's like if you outsource maintenance on your car, you'd want to make sure somebody's changing the oil. The barcoding allows you to really match that up and say, yep, there was a technician. He scanned the ticket. He was there for an hour, and mark that piece of equipment. So it really allows a couple things like that from a quality assurance point of view. So we get asked about return on investment a lot. So Chris, have you seen this study? Did I share this with you?
You did. It's pretty intriguing. So definitely shows that the right program implemented correctly will pay for itself pretty quickly. And especially, I think the thing that really stuck out to me was the warranty piece of that as well.
Yeah. Everybody asks about return on investment on these type of things. So intuitively, I think it's easy to say, yeah, that makes sense. We want to be able to know what equipment we're creating work tickets on, the associate calls with what the equipment is. There really is a return on investment. So this is one of the best studies that I've come across. It was done by an outfit called JLL that most of us have heard of. They've kind of become ubiquitous in commercial real estate. They have engineers in a lot of commercial buildings. So they did this study on a massive portfolio of their buildings. What they came to find out is the return on investment on hitting PM's preventive maintenance in accordance with the manufacturer's recommendation, basically owner's manual, monthly, quarterly, and annual PMs. The savings in early replacement of equipment it was 500 times the cost of actually doing the preventive maintenance versus deferring that preventive maintenance. So that's kind of a no-brainer once you see and are able to articulate that to whoever's asking about PM. In retail, this idea of warranty really becomes huge when you've got things like point of sale equipment that maybe doesn't have a robust preventive maintenance, but the guys that are selling that equipment typically have the contract across all your properties and will want to get out there and replace that piece of equipment. I mean, that literally is your cash register. So if that goes down, you're in trouble. Just an example that we've seen from some of our retail clients, especially in grocery. They want to be able to route this mid-level equipment through a warranty check before they have an outside maintenance firm do anything to it. So, and then, the last thing we talked about is what's the cost of downtime. So, and you can see the that downtime. Dianna, is there anybody from the manufacturing sector on this call?
Yeah, there
So-
are manufacturing, excuse me, organizations that have signed up. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Chris, have I ever told you my black pepper story?
Matt has lots of good stories. I'm not sure I remember that one though.
So our headquarters is used to be on a place called McCormick Road in Baltimore. It's called McCormick Road because the McCormick Spice Factory has been there, and so if you go on a tour of the McCormick Spice Factory, they will tell you that 90% of the black pepper in America goes through a single assembly line. So when they're telling you that story, they're trying to tell you how important it is that line never goes down unless it's planned. So the idea here is that literally is their cash is flowing across that assembly line. So when they think about planned maintenance, they're not thinking it's no big deal. It's it's a bearing, doesn't cost anything. Let's just run it till it wears out. It's exactly the opposite. It's like, okay, we're going to bring this thing down for a day every 3 months, and during that day, we're going to replace everything that has a lifespan of less than 3 months. It's kind of like NASCAR. You don't just replace the one tire, you replace all four. If you're going to pull over, Diana likes the NASCAR references. But yeah, so the idea of planned maintenance is really important in manufacturing. Being able to actually know what are the component parts, what's the life cycle, and get all those stacked up on a pallet ready to take care of during planned downtime. So downtime is big. It looks a little bit different when you're talking about the chicken wing place than the pepper line at McCormick, but it's really the same idea. So we've done a couple slides in a row. Dianna, should we ask for questions or should we keep rolling?
Yeah, if anyone has any questions, they can type them in at any time to the Q&A window available through the webinar platform. So feel free to do that. This is an interactive show. It is live, so feel free to do that. So yeah, we don't have any questions yet, but hopefully we will by the end of the presentation.
Got it. Hey, Matt,
Okay.
one other thing on the
Yeah.
warranty component of that, obviously selling new equipment, but a big part of what that goes into or people need to be tracking is new installation. So you're building a new facility, new restaurant, new retail facility. What we've seen a lot of times is, within 30 days or 60 days, something goes wrong. They call a warranty issue in or an equipment issue in. It goes straight to the manufacturer, when in fact the general contractor is in charge of that. So part of it's the routing and the way you set up that CMMS system to, again, make sure that stuff gets covered. It's not going straight to the manufacturer. There's kind of a stopgap or at least a question to ask before you go on to the next step.
Yeah, it makes sense. That's it starts with having that piece of equipment specifically named with its make, model, serial number, and that'll really enable all those kind of routings to happen. So all right, so
Can we take this one?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so hopefully that made sense to you guys, and obviously everybody's on here because they are excited about or want to understand what I should be doing for this asset management program. So there's a couple things to consider before we really start on this inventory. Obviously, what equipment's going to be included? I mean, we've got clients that are tracking 20 pieces of equipment, and we've got clients, grocery clients that are tracking 200 pieces of equipment. So really understand what's included. Why are you including that? And again, I think a lot of that really is done with a pilot, because oftentimes you've got different size facilities. different concepts, whatever that may be. So helping bucketize that and prioritize what that will be is important. Along with that is, once we're out there or somebody's out there collecting that data, what do you need to collect? A lot of times it's just make and model, but you can get the serial number, you can get remaining useful life. So a lot of different things that need to be considered as you start embarking on that inventory. Always helpful to understand what the existing inventory is. So again, a lot of that time comes out of, hey, here's the spreadsheets we've got, or whatever it is, some tracking sheets. So taking that information, analyzing it, making sure we're looking at the right things, and then really embarking on that program. And then we also talked about the warranty program. Is there anything in place? Do you have existing agreements with manufacturers to start tracking that warranty? So again, it's kind of building the model. And I would always encourage folks to go out and pilot this to figure out what you need. Oftentimes we're out there piloting 5 or 10 stores, come back and say, we need this, we don't need this. Is it a dollar threshold? Are we only tracking major mechanical systems, major capital spend items? So lots of things to consider before you start that inventory.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice, best practice from us. Whether you're hiring a third party or you're doing it in-house, actually going out and looking at a couple sites is going to turn up a couple things. So we've certainly done a ton of grocery lately, and there's been, everybody's reading about mergers and acquisitions in grocery, so grocery stores are different. So being able to come up with this is the standard for grocery Model A. Model A is like the urban. We just did one that we walked the owner through. They had small urban, typically in the bottom of an apartment building, groceries. We've all seen those. They had big suburban that have cafes and gas stations and stuff. And then so coming up with the small, medium, and large, and determining this is the 300 assets that we're collecting at the large, and tracking in the system. And then in the smaller, here's exactly what we're doing. The other thing that we discovered when we're doing these pilots is the idea that there's multiple stakeholders at the company. So if, hey, you've invested in this system, you've got a lot of good data in it, there may be more than one group that wants to be able to have a look at that data, or be able to say, hey, we're also doing this environmental thing. We want to know X, Y, and Z about the site lighting or something that may not necessarily be preventive maintenance or asset specific, but it's a data point that they would like to be included in the inventory. So having those couple walkthroughs, asking questions, having a couple stakeholders have been really useful in our conversations with owners. And I think that applies, if you're doing it with an in-house team or outsourcing.
Hey, Matt,
Yeah.
maybe talk about too, I think a lot of that conversation was focused around buildings. Obviously manufacturing is a big component of that. What's different about that, and things you need to consider versus a building? Because there's a ton of equipment in a manufacturing facility.
Yeah, so from the McCormick Pepper story, the roof is important, and the HVAC is important, but it turns out in manufacturing there's nothing more important than the line. So that's when we are working on a manufacturing project, there's usually has to be an on-site to talk about how much of the line is being captured. We're working on a project right now with Adidas. It's their East Coast warehouse and distribution facility. So we're including all the conveyances. So think conveyor belts, mechanical systems, robots that are doing stocking, and trying to get those all set up in the same maintenance system. We've also worked with auto manufacturing, like big manufacturing, and in addition to the building, the lines are very important, and trying to define how are those set up, and there may not be standard preventive maintenance, in our in the handbook. Somebody's going to need to create custom PMs for that. So yeah, that's the big difference in manufacturing, is really defining what is going to be captured in the system, and who's responsible for setting up PMs, or do they exist, or is somebody going to have to create the preventive maintenance routines?
Got it.
Okay, so you've decided to do an asset level inventory. You've thought about the scope of work. So let's talk a little bit about how you're going to do data collection. So this is a little example of how a third party might do data collection. So a couple things to think about is number one, naming conventions. How are you going to set up your buildings? Typically for us, we're thinking about buildings, asset, naming convention, air handler, and then it's air handler 1, air handler 2, and it is what fields are we capturing to go along with that. So having some kind of a data checklist on an electronic device is the way to go. You don't want to do this via yellow pad or calling each site and asking them to send you their Excel spreadsheet with the list of assets. So
one thing I think is important too is
last slide or this one?
Yeah, right here is fine. You know, a couple hundred assets in a building. You know, where do you start and how do you do that? What's the hierarchy? You know, and what's the flow of the building? So I think that's critical too. Otherwise, you may not be consistent in how you do that, and it may take you a while to do that if there's not some flow and some hierarchy to collecting that data.
So yeah, two things to consider actually is when we're called in to do these studies, typically two flavors. One is that the client has an existing list, you know, that they've partially set up, or they've got mechanical inventory from the drawings, and we're starting with that, and then we're going out and completing that and validating what's still in place. Having a little checklist like this and being able to say, okay, here's what the list that was provided of known assets is, and let's start with that and figure out if we can find all that, get a barcode on it, or pull the actual asset tag that's on the piece of equipment off and validate that that's still there. So starting with a known list is a good way to do it, but it means that you should be pulling that onto your device when you're actually out in the field doing the field survey. You should be looking at what the knowns are. So here is kind of the level of detail that we recommend is being captured. So right hand side, make, model, serial number, barcoding we talked about is being an option. This is how we would get all that in there. Dianna, you said I'd get extra points if I mentioned AI on this call. So what we've got a massive library of equipment from doing this. We know, for example, how the serial number relates to the year that the piece of equipment was produced for hundreds of manufacturers. We can pull that out of the model and serial number and use that as some kind of QC. Hey, there is no way this is a Trane rooftop unit. This is not. That's, even though the guy may have the make may have been typed in as that, but we know that's not the case. So we do this following. We take a picture of the actual asset tag on our tablet. We run that through an AI that number one uses optical character recognition to extract this model number and serial number. We then run that through an AI through this massive library that we've got that says, okay, based on that serial number, yep, that could be a Trane unit, and based on that, it came off the assembly line in 2005. Why is that good to know? We can estimate lifespan from that too. And if you're trying to put together a capital plan for estimated replacement timing on that, that would be a really great way to start on that. What else is cool about that is we've also developed a library of what the owner's manual for that Trane 10-ton unit said ought to be done monthly, quarterly, and annually. So once you accurately identify that device, certainly any user could do that themselves, pulling the owner's manual and thinking about PMs, or we can run it through our library and just attach it. So that AI allows us to do a couple smart things like that, and it's been real helpful.
I was surprised the error rate of, you know, it was a couple percent when humans do it, but I think it went to 0.1% with AI. So it improved things a ton. We were not having to go back and, like you said, correct capturing the correct information. So pretty cool how that was done.
Yeah,
Hey,
it's
Matt,
really been a
can
big,
you
big
talk
week for
about
us.
estimated useful life and remaining useful life? I know some folks may not be aware of what that is and how we do that. I know you talk
Yeah,
about
so bottom right hand corner of this, so we're talking about asset inventory, we're talking about barcoding. It is kind of being how you go from being a reactive facilities group with getting work tickets in the system to, okay, now I know what I've got, I'm going to do preventive maintenance. Kind of the last step on that best practice wise is, okay, what's the lifespan of that component? When does it need replacing? And what's it going to cost to replace that? Once I establish what the age of that component is, okay, I was there, I looked at it, I know when it was installed, I can figure out the calendar. Hey, came off the assembly line in 2005, do the math. I know how much longer in the useful life it's got. The advanced level of that is that we've got this thing called remaining useful life. What that allows us to do is to say, hey, I'm actually looking at this piece of equipment and yes, it's near its 15th birthday, but it's still operating fine. The bearings aren't rattling. There's no high frequency of call outs on it. We're not going to replace that on its 15th birthday just because it turned 15. We're going to keep an eye on it. We're going to make sure maybe we'll up the frequency of the inspection on it because it's at the end of life. But remaining life allows us to kind of this is where we can adjust to what the actual observation and experience of the maintenance manager is right now in a capital plan. Was that what you were thinking of, Chris?
It is, because I ultimately taking all this data and making better decisions with it ultimately leads to better capital planning. Because I mean,
yeah,
we're all used to kind of the local facility folks submitting their Excel spreadsheet of their capital plan, what they want to do. This really automates the process and allows people to have a 1, 3, 5, 10-year capital plan because they've got the data there and it continually gets updated as equipment rolls through, as preventative maintenance happens. So ultimately, that's where you want to go because you've got all this good data here.
Yeah, the inertia is to report on equipment that's breaking down often and typically the stuff that's coming at you because it's near the end of life and we know it's going to need replacing gets underreported until it's starting to fail. So this will allow us to do that. We capture a couple other things that allow us to do buckets in the capital plan. Okay, is there a potential energy payback on this piece of equipment? Is there an accessibility impact here or compliance? So a couple additional things that we do to bucket. So
we've even added ESG now too, Matt. So
yeah, for sure. And once you start putting together this list, you're doing equipment. The idea of answering ESG questions during an inventory exercise. Somebody's going out to the site, maybe doing barcoding, maybe just making a list. Are there ESG questions that are being asked that may not be equipment specific? So Chris, a lot of times we get asked about how do you standardize condition? Condition isn't again necessarily part of a inventory, but it's right there while you're looking at the equipment. So we use kind of this 5 good, fair, poor, failed. By definition, if a piece of equipment's still operating, it's got to be it's not failed until it's stopped operating. So if it's offline, then it's failed. So everything else is an approach to that. We actually like to have pictures of what a good, fair, and poor indicators are, so the technicians can synchronize on that. I think one thing you find if we're having a person at each site kind of reporting on equipment, it's you'll get pretty standard results if people are doing the equipment one site at a time with the local manager, but condition it takes some real talent or consistency. For us, we've got pictures and the descriptions of that, but you're going to get different results if you use in-house folks to try to do a condition analysis. So we'd recommend that's part of an outsourced.
Hey, Matt, I think the other critical piece of that, and I love the picture component of that, because the way I rate something could be different than the way you rate something, but it really is beneficial too on major assets too. So if I'm looking at a parking lot, if I'm looking at a roof, facade, even landscaping, I mean, everybody, at least you're consistent with the definitions. Because again, you may say a parking lot's is fair, and I think it's poor. It needs to get replaced. So it just helps with consistency, like you said.
Hey, so Chris, we got a question in the Q&A. Regarding HVAC and refrigeration systems, do we record refrigerant type circuit charge? The answer is yes. So two ways of doing that. One would be to cross-reference back to the owner's manual on that piece of equipment. The other is for the technician on site to be bringing that information back. We definitely have had that included in some of the stuff that we're doing, say for Target as a client, and we actually did one of these that was focused just on refrigeration and mechanical systems, and that was one of the big drivers. Chris, maybe when you said ESG, that got people thinking about refrigerants.
Well, no, it's a good question, because frankly, that has been a focus of a lot of folks, is say, holy cow, I've got issues, or it's coming up where I need to make some decisions on my refrigerant and what I'm doing. What do I really have? And people think they know what they have, but need to really go out there and understand where we're at. And again, starting to make better decisions on that, because it's a significant investment. How do you do that? How do you prioritize that? If you don't have that information handy, then it could be expensive and not timely for you.
Yeah. But yeah, great question, actually. So, and tracking that stuff in your maintenance management system is the appropriate place to track that. So all right, so this is the one that you've been waiting for, Chris. This is about barcodes, QR codes. I know you've been studying. What's the difference between a barcode and a QR code?
Let me make sure. I'll try to get this right. And I figured you were going to ask me this. So barcode, a couple things. It's linear, so it can only be read one way, and it does not store as much data. The QR code is quickly replacing that. It was slow to adopt because I think it required additional equipment to do it. But now, obviously, I think everybody can do that with your phone. But you can capture it at any angle, and it captures a lot more specific data for each site. So I don't know if I passed or not, Matt, but that's the best.
Nah, sounds good to me. We hear people talking about the barcoding being three-dimensional, and then as we all learned during the lockdown, the barcode can be used to embed a URL code that'll pull you to a website. So the idea is that'll allow you.
For all the menus we got to look at now these days, because nobody has the paper ones.
Exactly. So yeah. So there and the straight up barcode would just be a string of numbers. But so either way, there's a couple things to consider if you're going to do a barcoding and tagging exercise. It makes sense to do if you're doing an equipment inventory while you're out and have a technician on their hands and knees looking at the equipment tag to do this at the same time. Some of these tags were actually printing out words on them that say this, just to make sure this air handler is now called AHU number 14. Sometimes for us, actually going through a renaming exercise is part of doing one of these. That's very common, especially I mentioned in the grocery space. There's been a lot of acquisitions, so often we're coming and trying to use the implementation of the CMMS as a way of consolidating a standardized playbook for maintenance across what is now a combined brand. So considerations on this are you going to do a naming convention here on the actual barcode or QR code, or are you going to have that equipment name on a separate tag somewhere, or neither? But either way, this can be used to pull up this piece of equipment in the system and be the beginning of a work order and then in reverse for a technician doing work on it, this is the quickest way to pull that asset up in the system, and then take care of what enter in what the work order is or retire the work order. Anything else you think we need? Oh,
yeah,
that's just
a
yeah.
couple things, Matt.
Yeah.
So I talk about label. Look, I got a couple things for you. One is what's a label cost, and what should I be looking for to label? Because I know we've been through a couple iterations, and we really have a product we like now. Not sure what that cost, which people should be thinking about as well. And lastly, I'll probably interrupt you a little bit, but fun fact: I just found out we installed 2.5 million tags in the past 5 years, which I thought was kind of cool. So lots of tags.
Yeah, that's all. We always want to have some big numbers like that. The stats. Did you want to talk about vinyl versus foil? What we've learned about tags and durability?
Yeah, are you not going to talk about adhesives too, or is that for another?
So we have a guy that I'm not joking. If Dianna ever invites us back and wants a half hour on adhesives, we've got that ready to go. But here's what we've learned. So when we first started doing this, we were applying vinyl tags indoors because they were cheaper, and then we were using foil tags outside because they were more durable. Where we are now is we're now using neither. We're actually using a metal tag, so thicker than a foil tag, with an etched QR code on it. So that's like it's laser etched and then inked. So basically, they're indestructible as far as being able to use out in weather, or as we've found, a lot of these are in environments that are greasy or getting washed often. So the vinyl tags ended up having very limited lifespan, even in what we thought were low wear and tear environments. So we've completely evolved to where we're recommending etched metal tags in almost every application now. So and then there are different levels of adhesives, but if you're thinking of doing this in-house, highly recommend that the one piece that you outsource is going to an outside firm and getting paying for good barcodes. You don't want to use Avery labels, because they won't make it through the first set of preventive maintenance.
Saving for Christmas cards. So
yeah, and maybe I'm dating myself. Dianna, do people still know what Avery labels are? Is that like a
Well, if I
boomer
say
reference?
I know what an Avery label is, I worry I might be dating myself too. So I'm not going to throw myself in your bucket there, Matt. So
I'll have to take that out of my wrap for the future. Retire that one. So all right. So let's see what was next. I know we're reaching to the end. Oh, I think this is important as well. So so if you're going to do barcoding or QR coding, you're going to put the stickers on the actual piece of equipment. Best practice would be to also create what we call a binder. We don't necessarily put this in a 3-ring binder, but conceptually, if the manager at the location can have a sheet someplace in the office that here is the QR code associated with the cappuccino or the walk-in cooler, that they don't have to go into the walk-in cooler and find the barcode. They can pull up their this is the can pull up their binder, find that piece of equipment. This also we think speeds up the process of piece of equipment gets replaced. That hey, we can replace that in the in the binder, and then we can print off a new set of labels when the new piece of equipment comes online. So I think this is the clients that we've supplied with this say this is really useful, and so we'd recommend that everybody think about doing this. A little bit about what that would look like in our database coming in. Chris, this was your project. This was Del Frisco's, right? The steak restaurant.
It was, yeah. We didn't do a good job taking clients off, but yeah. But no,
Yeah.
heavy heavy asset restaurant. So it was a full service restaurant, but you're right. That's really what it looks like for a deliverable from us. And again, getting that information into a system. So pretty agnostic on the data collection tool we've got to get that into whatever CMMS system you're trying to go through or go with.
Yeah, so I think this is the last slide we'll talk about is and we've mentioned this a couple of times that so there, when you're doing the pilot study, you're thinking about the list of what's going to be captured. The inertia is to think about things with moving parts, mechanical systems, refrigeration. Think about whether you want to get your say signage. You know, this doesn't necessarily have moving parts, doesn't necessarily have preventive maintenance, but we've found that in the retail space, our clients want to have a handful of these assets captured. They want to know what's there. They want to be able to pull it up, and they want to be able to have it inspected on a recurring basis. So having it in the work order system allows them to set up those recurring inspections as a required
Hey,
maintenance.
Matt, the other thing that's turned into is, collecting FF&E. What's my floor covering? What's my wall covering? What's the ceiling look like?
Yeah.
How many toilets do I have? How many urinals do I have? What's the lighting that I've got? Is it LED? Has it been upgraded? So again, it's just getting data while you're there to take that information, do something, whether that information turns into a program. Somebody specifically had a checklist for us, which turned into their ESG response on some things to help me understand that. So again, I would take advantage while somebody's out there, collect all the information you need, and then again, you can feed that into your CMMS system as well.
Yeah, makes sense. So Dianna, we're at the 45-minute mark. I think we've covered everything that we wanted to cover. Anything else that you would add to this?
I think that as I thought about questions as you guys were talking and bouncing the information off of each other, pretty much everything was covered very completely and holistically. If anybody has any other questions, it looks like there might be another question that has come in. And that is about an integration with Fexa. So right now, there is how would we want to position that question?
Yeah, so I mean and it's a good question. So what we showed you is our data collection software. It's not meant to be it's meant to get the information into Fexa. So that's what we showed you isn't meant to be something that would live with the customer past the data collection point of view. So yeah, that's that. Yes, that is meant to be the front end that the guys are doing in the field. We typically are using a standardized data upload template with Fexa to get the data up into the system. So yeah, I think that answers the question. And we agree, you don't want to have two separate systems.
Right.
So.
And we can follow up, Tim, with some additional information about getting that information into Fexa and how that might work. So we'll follow up with you offline. Okay, a couple more questions have come in. We can see those.
Yeah, so I think the first one is just asking for contact info. So from Iris. So Dianna, you can.
We can take that offline.
Take that one, and then the idea of in terms of getting started, how can I pilot this at a site or two to see how it would work? So so I'll answer that the two ways. So if we were going to use a third party and we were going to get that call, we would send one of our guys out to walk the site with you. We'd ask you to have a list of your known list of equipment printed out, and we'd want to walk the site and say, okay, here's what we're collecting. Should we add this to the scope? Should we add that to the scope? Are we doing naming conventions, or is that already set? So that's what we would want to accomplish from a pilot, is understand You're saying HVAC units, we'd want it to say how good is the existing inventory? Are there adjacent systems that you might want to consider adding? And then what are the data points? Are we collecting make, model, and serial number? Somebody mentioned refrigeration, capacity of the units. What's the important info to make sure that nobody has to come to the site twice? And typically we would do that kind of a walkthrough at no cost. We'll do a pilot and for scope development. And I guess the answer is, if you're doing it in-house, I would really do the same thing. Whoever's going to do that, are you trying to have one team go out to multiple sites? Do you need to develop a scope so everybody knows what they're doing on each site? Or are you trying to develop a checklist that site level maintenance would do? So to me, Chris, would you agree the process is pretty much the same, whether you're outsourcing it or doing it in-house?
I would agree with that. So I think the thing I'd share with you too on the outsource versus in-source, again, clients go both ways, and it really depends on your staff and what they can do. I think we found it successful to do it quickly, to get that information into the system and then start doing something with it. Because we've had some folks that say, hey, we'll get to that over time. What happens over time, it's kind of sparse. It's not their full-time job, so they don't necessarily do it correctly. At the end of the day, not all the information gets in there. It's not consistent across the board. So however people do that, think about doing it consistently and timely, just so you can start taking that data and doing something with it.
All right.
All right.
Looks like one more just popped in. Oh, thanks.
Yeah, no, it was just a thank you. Okay.
They said that you were great, Chris.
Oh, thanks. I'll quit
Great
talking.
answers.
So
yeah, so great interaction, everyone. I do need to go ahead and cut us off here and wrap this up. We will be providing all of this information, including a recording of today's show, to everyone by emailing this out with a link, along with additional resources and the ability to contact everyone that has been involved in this presentation today. So if you have additional questions, there will be opportunities to ask those questions. The Fexa website and YouTube channel will also contain all of our Fexa Network shows. That will be available 24/7 as we go forward with all of our resource library information. Our next show will be on November 30th. I encourage everyone to sign up for that show as well. It will be about EPA oversight and the new skills needed to support the new HFC regulations. And so that's going to be something that everyone is going to have to be very concerned with in the near future. So I do encourage you to sign up for that show as well and learn about that. I want to thank our guest educators today again. A lot of great information. Guys, appreciate your time, and I appreciate everybody's time for joining us today. I want to thank you and have a great day.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Diana.